March 13th State Board meeting will now come to order. If you will, please stand and we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Board, do we have any changes to the agenda? I do know that number one, the congressional app winners will not be here. We gave those superintendents and parents and students the opportunity to make that decision, and so we will let them come back another month, because we all want to see that. Anthony Owens, is he going to do a presentation, or is it just the stuff that we were sent via email?
He's gonna be here.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we pause on that and go straight to our guest and our little bit of a crowd here, and Tim Brown, if you want to start.
Want me to start?
Sure.
Oh, I'll be on.
Is that okay with the board?
How are y'all doing? It is. I got to tell you, it's a super honor to be here with all of you all. I'm from El Dorado, Arkansas originally. Who's from that region? Some?
Mr. Williamson is, but he's
Not here, yeah.
I'm disappointed to miss you.
I am disappointed to miss him, but the fact that you all were appointed for 7-year terms to make a difference in the lives of kids here in this state is a thrill and also quite an obligation. And to watch the coordinated efforts of everyone here is mind-blowing, to be honest with you. A little bit about me, and then I'm just going to do a quick presentation and answer questions. I don't know that I would say I'm representing Solution Tree. I'm more here to represent the concept of professional learning communities and what you all have done as a state, and just to recognize that, and then join in the celebration of these fabulous educators that are sitting on that next row where I was sitting. So first of all, I graduated from high school in 1974, El Dorado High School. Then went on to get my undergraduate degree at UCA, and went back to start teaching my first career, right, at El Dorado, and was in a special education classroom with students who had special needs. And what I found is that I had some great teachers in my life. How many of you had great teachers? Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to share one, all right? There you go. That tells you what we looked like in 1974, 1973. My favorite teacher is this one right here, all right? Maxine Crisp was my junior English teacher, who I realized now was ahead of her time. She did things in that classroom that we all should be doing in our classrooms today. And I never missed a chance to celebrate her and as some of the other teachers on that page there. But I will tell you also that they were a department which was traditional in our schools, not a team, which is where we are seeing people head now, right? And the things that you all support and that your state legislators have supported have been phenomenal here in the state. It's been my pleasure to be one of the associates who comes in and does some of the training for professional learning communities in your state. I live in Springfield, Missouri now. 28 years in public education there. I was a building level principal, and then started doing this work about 14 years ago, and have been so impressed to see what's going on that when they asked me if I would be one of the associates to come to Arkansas and do the training, I said yes, absolutely. All my family still lives up in Fayetteville area, and we call the Hogs instead of the Missouri Tigers at our house, right? And so I thought it maybe just interact with you all a little bit because of the dedication you have. And I've started asking people, educators all over the country, this same question. What do you think parents want most for their child when they send them off to school?
I would say safety and
Okay.
learn how to read.
Safety and to learn how to read. Yeah, anyone else?
Relationships.
Relationships, yeah,
Just to be successful.
for them to be successful. Yeah, you're spot on. You know, what do parents want most when they send their child off to school? I think they want their child to come out like this, you know, confident, capable, safe and secure. And then we have all this great information from both public and private school organizations who say those are the top 3 things they want. Providing a safe and secure environment, that was number 1 on the list from both public and private school surveys. Developing knowledge and success for skills for success in college or a career field is what they want. And then ensuring that all children, regardless of background, have the opportunity to succeed. That was actually the top goal of African American parents and low income parents, right? And so what you did as a state is you did something that a lot of states have never done, right? You did that idea of, well, let's think big and take some big actions. To do this statewide, to have created and been a part of creating legislation that says professional learning communities is a research-based practice that calls on teachers to come together and work collaboratively, to be focused on that collaboration, to share their skills, their knowledge, their expertise with one another, and to make that an effort statewide is a phenomenal exercise and quite a risk for everybody to take, but yet the right risk because of the power that it gives to teachers to be empowered to make those changes for their kids, right? So if you don't know much about the professional learning community process or model or are unaware, I thought I'd just give a real quick rundown on that. It started with this guy, Rick DeFore, and a good thought leader with him, Dr. Bob Aker. In 1998, I don't know where you were in 1998, but when I was in 1998, I was in charge. I had just been given a very low-performing school in our city of Springfield with 90% poverty and the lowest performing out of 40 elementaries. And I was looking for answers. I mean, we go to work every day inspired and trying to make a difference, but these teachers had been morally defeated because of their efforts not being recognized and because students' lives were being cared for but not changed dramatically because they were missing the educational opportunities and the skill advancement that they needed. So I heard this guy speak one time at an Effective Schools conference, and I thought, wow, what a different way of thinking. I mean, that their core purpose is not just to ensure that students are taught, but to ensure that students learn. And then when you hear his thought leader in this, Dr. Bob Akers. Rick was a principal at a high school. Bob was probably the most outstanding teacher prep teacher in the state of Tennessee. He says, look, the whole concept here is that kids aren't broken. They just need us to help them, right? To teach them those skills and ensure that they have those. So if you take yourself back to 1998, let's do a Throwback Friday, right? Dr. Key, where were you in 1998?
I was working in a factory floor in Mountain Home.
Mountain Home.
Yep.
Anybody else want to share? Dr. Hill?
I was coaching football for the Razorbacks.
Right, yeah. Well, in 1998, those two guys that I just shared with you, they wrote a book about the transformation that they caused or had happen in their school at Adlai Stevenson High School. After 7, 8, 9 years of putting ideas in place and realizing that inviting people to collaborate never works. Matter of fact, Rick would tell you, if he were here today, he said, we told teachers, we know it's good to collaborate. If you want to collaborate, just sign up on our door and we'll make sure you have someone to talk to and collaborate with. He says we went the whole year and nobody signed up. He says, so in our lessons, we learned that there has to be focused collaboration, not just people coming together, and there has to be a concept of a team and what that team is driving itself to. So they wrote their book, and 1998, you just do the math. I mean, how many years ago is that? 22 years ago. In our field of education, I think all of you all recognize in any field you're in, it's odd to have something like this, like an initiative or an effort hold for 22 years. There's such a pendulum swing all the time in education, right? And this too shall pass becomes kind of the flavor of the day for a lot of our schools. But for 22 years, the professional learning community at work process has been developing, evolving, and continues to grow. And it is just making sense because it's about this, right? It's about bringing the various adult personalities together to create a learning culture, right? It says we're not going to be satisfied until every area in which a student isn't doing well is erased. And to rally a group of educators around that every day as they drive to work is pretty thrilling and exciting. And it's also the best practice we could ever find in our field. Dr. John Hattie, when he did his research on most influential practices that we should be doing in our schools, he says collective teacher efficacy is the number 2 thing on the list. It has a 1.57 effect size. Now, 0.4 effect size in our field and study is normal growth. If you really want to accelerate the growth of kids, you're going to have teachers work collectively, right? And believe in themselves, that they have that capability to plan and organize and execute the necessary courses of action. And when we do that, they plan more, they work harder, they seek answers, they engage in collective inquiry. And when that collective inquiry is focused on 3 main things, which we call the 3 big ideas of a professional learning community, it gets amazing results. I can attest to that because we took these ideas back to that high poverty school in Springfield, Missouri. And without a change in demographics, we still had the same kids. As a matter of fact, poverty grew. Within 3 years, we were the top performing school in mathematics in our district. And our district is a district of distinction in the state of Missouri. And when you take a school of 90% and those teachers rally around and engage in collective inquiry and they bring those kids to high levels of performance where over 90% of the students are hitting the proficiency and advanced mark in math and the top 3rd tier in language arts, you know you've latched on to something that's the right thing to do. And then when I retired, they kept doing it. So that it was sustainable because teachers were empowered to make that happen. So we think about if we could just create schools where we had everything aligned to what we want to have happen and all kids learn, and that was our fundamental purpose, then we'd look at everything we do through that lens. And we would do it collaboratively, which is just the simple 2nd big idea of a professional learning community. We cannot achieve our purpose unless we are organized into teams that focus on things, the pedagogies that matter in the classroom, which the pedagogies of curriculum, the pedagogies of assessment, of intervention, and the kind of environment that we have to create if kids are going to really thrive. And then to get there, you have to practice the 3rd big idea. So we would find educators and teachers working collaboratively in these schools, and they'd be data-driven in terms of best practice. They'd look at their own practices through that lens, and they'd decide, is this working or isn't it? And if it's not, let's change it, and let's get into the best practices we can. In a research-based practice that's action research in our classrooms, right? And so the top-down part kind of goes away and the bottom-up kind of thrives, and as a result, we see great excellence happening inside of our schools, and particularly when, and I think these folks behind me would attest, particularly when there's a framework. The framework are these 4 questions right here. I love those questions because they came from teachers themselves who said, you know, hanging out together is nice, but we're pretty busy to just hang out with each other. And I have to be honest, I rarely find teachers, you probably could attest, teachers don't sit around going, I have so much time on my hands, I don't know what to do with myself. Most of them are really super busy, so if you're going to meet, you need to be focused in your meeting. And if we could answer what do we want our students to learn and align that between departments so that 2 algebra teachers or 2 or 3 biology teachers were making sure that they had a guaranteed viable curriculum. And guaranteed is that we're going to make sure kids have this, not just that we have it on a list, but we're going to make sure that they learn these things. And if we would assess those appropriately and then respond with that 2nd and 3rd question, how do we know if they're learning it? And then what do we do if they didn't learn it? And then how about the idea of responding when they already know it through enrichment and extensions of kids' learning? And to have that driven by a group of teachers who invested in those kids, who know those kids, and who think of these kids as our kids, not these are mine and these are yours, but these are all of ours, that's a difference maker for every student and the culture of a building. Just that whole idea of sharing knowledge and skills. I'm an associate in this work because I led it. And everybody that's coming into your state that are associates doing the coaching the embedded coaching that calls for in this project and the cohort groups, they're all practitioners. We have teachers who come into your school districts and schools who work with your teachers themselves because of that practitioner and because they have been invested in the PLC at Work process. I won't delay much longer, but I do think it's good to hear from a teacher, don't you? I mean, that's where the rubber hits the road. So one of my friends in this work is Bill Ferriter. And Bill Ferriter is a teacher, an author, and I would say probably one of the best PLC experts out there. So let's just hear from Bill about what this means to him, okay?
Hey, my name is Bill Ferriter, and I've worked as a teacher in a professional learning community for the last 15 years. And I gotta tell you that early in my collaborative work with colleagues, the 4 key questions of learning were a lifesaver for all the teams that I worked on. Here's why. Those 4 questions: what do we want our students to know and be able to do? How are we gonna know that our students are learning? What are we gonna do to help students who haven't mastered the outcomes that we thought were essential for every child to master? And what are we gonna do to stretch learning for students who are excelling in our classrooms? Gave us a structured format for studying our curriculum with one another. And that really moved us forward. It gave us a purpose in all of our meetings because we were going to study those 4 key questions unit by unit, week by week, through our curriculum with one another. But here's the thing. I've always wanted the chance to do something more than just study my curriculum with my colleagues. I want to reimagine what teaching and learning should look like in the 21st century when access to information is almost universal and ubiquitous. I want to rethink grading and assessment and feedback practices and find ways to rebuild hope in the hearts and minds of struggling learners. I need to find better ways to integrate and support the students who come to my classroom struggling with poverty so that I can be an engine of hope for both them and their community. Those are the things that I value. They're the things that I'm passionate about. When I'm working on those things, that's when I'm the most fulfilled. And if I could find a group of colleagues who shared those same values and we could integrate them into the collaborative work that we do with one another, I have no doubt that we could have an impact on our communities like no other. So I guess if I was going to look back and give advice to novice learning teams after having done this for a while, it would be, don't settle for just studying your curriculum with each other. Instead, define what you value with one another and find ways to put those values into action in your classrooms. Doing so is going to have an incredibly positive impact on your students, but just as importantly, doing so is going to leave you fulfilled as both a person and a practitioner. Does that make sense?
He makes sense to me. But when I hear teachers talk about this, and I would guess these folks could say it, they would say things like, I would never go back to working in isolation. The power of this has been too influential on my own practices, and I'm influencing others in this practice of working collaboratively together. You know, there's a saying out there, and you may have heard it, there is no I in team. I find that to be a ridiculous statement, to be honest with you. I think Vince Lombardi has a better way of thinking of it. That a team is made up of individuals who have to come together and be focused. And in that focus, that individual commitment is what makes that team really work. And you talk about people who've been on teams and work with teams, and they go, yeah, that's the difference maker. Inside of these schools that you all have helped support and that your state legislators are helping to support and the funding is helping to support, we're growing people into a team as they take that individual commitment to make this happen. And I just have to share with you that the thrill about this is that your state Department of Education has been doing, Arkansas Department of Education has really expanded this beyond even my wildest ideas and beliefs. They're taking a model here and they're saying, if this can be done, then we all need to be invested and vested in it. And so I just put a few of the other departments and entities within the state level who have asked for and are receiving and are sponsoring trainings all around your state as well. I had the wonderful thrill of working with your career and tech teacher leaders yesterday. who help sponsor and make sure that the career tech programs are running it and doing incredibly well. And what a fabulous group of people, super great group of people. And I shared with them a story about one of the people I've had a chance to work with in Buffalo Island, his name is Bruce, and he's a career tech person there, and he is on the Guiding Coalition and helping lead this effort and finding ways to manage this as a singleton, where he has other people he can collaborate with, and they're coming up with some crazy great ideas of what to do with kids and invest in those students as well. So I see this as not just an isolated ripple, right? Not just one thing, but ultimately the whole state and every entity that helps kids learn and are responsible for that in some capacity are helping do that as well. So all of those are some of the groups. And then just to let you know, I mean, I'm really proud of this because I'm from Arkansas, right? You guys are like getting a name, such positive press and a name out there. We have institutes. We do about 17 institutes. Anthony Muhammad, one of my dear friends in this work and all about culture change, never fails. He does the closing keynote, and he always shows that flag right there. And he speaks so highly of Arkansas and what this state has done that no other state has been willing to do. This state has been willing to think big and then take big actions. You can follow that if you want to. There's a Twitter account that goes right along with this. Somebody, clever people out here, right? There's your hashtag, PLC for Arkansas. If you've not gone there, if you don't do Twitter, let me encourage you to do that. If you do Twitter, let me encourage you to get that hashtag going, because I'm telling you, you'll start seeing all kinds of stories, positive stories about your state, where people are sharing out the things that people are doing and sharing out their successes, right? And they're saying, hey, it's not always easy, right? But we're making strides and we're making growth. And then we have this great group here today to receive that recognition. They're one of the most active people I know on Twitter, and it's fun to follow them. And just think about the impact of how many retweets these things come out. And so what I find is that people support. I mean, the public supports positives. You're creating something incredibly positive on behalf of your students, and it has this rippling effect. Now, sometimes ripples happen by accident. That's not the case here. There's an intentionality. You guys caused the ripple. It wasn't an accident that started. You gave great focus to it, and now you have 30 cohort schools receiving over 50 days of in-service and training. You have people attending conferences and interacting with other educators from all over the globe. Your ripples have happened so fast that it's been remarkable. And Solution Tree, which is the sole provider of professional learning communities at work, they're a publishing company and the largest provider of staff development that's embedded into schools across the nation. They have offices in Bloomington, Indiana, but they've opened offices in Australia. Their goal is to transform education worldwide. They just opened an office here. That shows you their dedication to your efforts and their appreciation to your efforts to say, we got one in Australia. Why wouldn't we have one in Arkansas where they're doing this great stuff? And then maybe other states would like to see what they're doing, and who knows what will happen for your students and for your educators and for your teachers. And I think this is what's going to happen.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for the opportunity. And now, any questions that we might have?
Any questions at this point? I think you're looking at a board who stays pretty up to date about stuff, and we want to thank the Secretary and the Governor and the Legislature for bringing this to us, and all the people at the department who are making it work, as well as those out in the districts.
Yes. Yeah, it's an amazing thing that you all are doing. And the fact that you're committing yourselves to this and that you're appointed to this just speaks highly of you as well.
Yeah. And you give an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Hook, if I may, Tim, thank you for the work that you do. I know you're one of the favorites when you come home. Our schools are always bragging about their interactions with you, and it's not because you just fill the air full of fluff. I mean, you're very positive, but you make it real, and you, when necessary, you have tough conversations, and that's good, and that's indicative of this team across the board and these coaches and the folks that work with our pilot schools. I will say also that much of what we are learning is building upon itself. So you've heard our special ed team talk about their work in looking at inclusive practices. That is an outgrowth of the work we're seeing and the positive impact we're seeing in our pilot schools with respect to our students with special needs. As a matter of fact, in some of our schools, because their inclusivity is being so effective, we are seeing decreased numbers of students being referred for special education services. We are seeing a shortened time frame of how long students are needing special education services, which is how it's supposed to be. It's not a life sentence. You know, special education isn't supposed to be a life sentence, and so many times that's what we've run into. So that's like a next step you're going to be hearing more about. I can't say enough about the schools that are here today, not just them, but the others, but them specifically because of what we'll talk about next with some special recognition. But Tim, thanks. Keep calling the hogs. Keep coming back. We appreciate the work.
Well, I appreciate
that
your
you're doing.
comments, and it's not just because I have an Arkansas accent that people respond. I'm pretty sure that's it. I think it's because everything resonates with educators that makes sense, right? Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay, do you all want to make comments and then us give you your plaques, or would you like to get your plaques and then step up to the road? Yeah. You work as a team, so we'll let y'all decide.
I can speak first.
Okay, great. Identify yourself and what position.
Okay, so my name is Mandy Dunlap, and I am principal at Greenbrier Eastside Elementary. And I'm going to introduce the folks I brought with me real quick. So this is Kelly Krogman. She is my assistant principal. Daniel Hope, he is 4th grade math. Sarah Graham, kindergarten. Araya Franklin, 4th grade science. And Lauren Isom, 5th grade literacy. And I wish I could have brought the whole team. There's 50 of them if you count our paras and everybody, and it takes all the staff to make this work possible. We got about 430 students pre-K through 5. And so just know as I speak, I'm speaking on behalf of all of them. Eastside, thanks to y'all, was given an awesome opportunity. I always called it the chance of a lifetime. And I started as their principal 3 years ago. So all I have known has been the partnership with Solution Tree, learning how to work as teams. That's just been part of our process since I've been there. When I first took the job that summer, I met with every individual staff member, and all of these that are with me were all there in the beginning with me. When I interviewed each one of them individually, I said, because Eastside was up against a lot of adversity, there was just a lot that they were going to need to overcome. And I asked them, in a perfect world, Eastside would be. And for a long time, some of them just sat there and looked at me. And I said, no, like, really think, like, what do you want? And they said, well, we want to be a school that other people can come and learn from. And because of the recognition we now have with Model PLC, they have done it. And it has been a roller coaster ride. Not everything has been easy, but everyone has taken their part in the process and realized that we're doing what's best for kids. And we have continued to see growth. We have kids all the time that run up to us to tell us, did you hear what I got on this essential standard? Last year I had a kid that would carry on a piece of paper for days at a time, and he would show everybody how he was doing. And so it's not just within the staff, it really has bled over into the students. We meet weekly for team meetings, of course, looking at essential standards, creating our CFAs, looking at the data. I remember Ms. Graham, I'm going to put you on the spot, when we received our first day of training with Brian Butler 3 years ago. He told us, he said, now it will become where all of the students are all of your students. And her being in kindergarten, she even asked the question, I just don't see how that's possible. And if at that point in time we did not get it, but truly our staff as a whole works with kids wide ranges. It's not just you're in Miss Graham's kindergarten class. We constantly have kids moving around getting the support that they need. So we truly have achieved that. We're not there on every issue. Question 4 talks about, what are you going to do when the kids don't or have already learned it? And we are in the process of working on how do we make sure and extend kids' learning where everyone's getting the benefit. We're doing an awesome job with intervention and giving everything kids need, but now to extend that piece, that's kind of where we are in the process. But I can't say enough about how thankful I am that we were given this opportunity, and just know that I understand the charge that comes with that, being that now we have been given that opportunity to help other schools around us, and we are ready to take that on. So thank y'all so much.
Thank you very much. If you'll stay right there and bring your team up. Also, I'll mention this is a school that in all grades, they met their growth score.
That's awesome.
And they're also way ahead in RISE. Did you spend the night moving furniture? I did. Okay, now, someone from Fort Smith? There you come.
Hello,
Good
my name
morning.
is Lori Griffin, and I'm from Fort Smith at Ballman Elementary. We've had a lot of illness around Fort Smith. I'm the only one here today. But Fort Smith and Ballman Elementary staff and I want to truly thank you for the commitment that you've given to Arkansas education and the investment that you've made in our kids and our teachers. And we just cannot thank you enough. It is phenomenal. I get giddy about this work. It is the reason I wake up every morning. I fell in love with Solution Tree back in 2007 when I went to my first conference in Tulsa. And I worked in 2 different districts and led this process. And I have seen it change the culture of two schools. It is just amazing what teachers, how collaborative they become and how they trust each other. And when I led in Fort Smith, I took a team of teachers to a convention in Tulsa, and I talked the kindergarten and first grade team into coming on board and just going and let's pilot this for Ballman. And that was back in 2014. And I had a kindergarten teacher come up to me the second day of the conference, and she said, I just want to tell you, I did not want to come to this conference, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart for bringing me, because I know tomorrow I have to go back to school and I have to start changing what we do. And so they came to Ballman and came back and started the charge, started collaborative meetings, and we started celebrating their successes. And celebration is the fuel that drives this work. And so they shared with everyone in the school on a consistent basis. We took 12 more people to a conference in 2015, and then the pilot came along, and we thought we have to apply for this to take our learning to deeper levels, and we just cannot thank you enough. I want to share that in both districts, the teacher retention has been phenomenal, and you have to have teacher retention to create a great team. And in Ozark, when I led there, we went 5 years without anyone leaving, and I think I left to go to Fort Smith and start a new mission of leading PLC work. We are now in our 3rd year at Ballman with no one leaving. And teacher teams from other districts are coming in and watching our work, and our teachers are sharing. And the excitement that they have when they talk to these teams. We had a team from Mountainburg come, and Missy Wally came also. And when the teachers left the room, they said, how in the world do you keep this excitement? Because you could see their excitement just build as they were explaining their work and sharing their celebrations. And so we've just had so many pieces of data show improvement outside of our test scores, such as when I first came to Ballman, it wasn't a very welcoming culture, and parents were not even allowed to come eat lunch. And so now we had to change our story, and last year we had 10 families visit our school because they had heard of the work, and all 10 of them chose to send their children to Ballman this year, and we are just having so much fun every single day, increasing learning for students. Also, as Commissioner Key mentioned, the special ed referrals. We are so proud that in these last 3 years, they have reduced tremendously. We had 23 3 years ago, and this past year we had 12, and all but 2 were speech only. And so it just shows the change of mindset that teachers have in this work, and they truly believe that all kids can learn at high levels, and they want their children in their classroom for core instruction as much as possible. So we just want to thank you for giving us this chance to make a difference in Arkansas, and we will rise to the top in the nation.
Thank you for the work you're doing. If you'll wait just right there.
Tell Brad to come up and be my buddy.
And Mr. Gossage, if you will take back to the governor our thanks and appreciation for his support and the work he did on this.
Well, Madam Chair, I would like Missy Wally to maybe come and share her perspective, because you heard about the 30, but I think we have an update on the cohort 4 letters of intent and the process there. Missy came from a school or a district that is a pilot district in Prescott, and we were able to get her here, and y'all heard from her before, but if we could just take a couple minutes for Missy to give her perspective on this work,
Absolutely.
I'd appreciate it.
Just state your name when you get there for the live stream.
Good morning. I am Missy Wally, and I am thrilled to be a part of this. This has been an excellent opportunity, and it's been fun to work with these people. I do want to congratulate, even though they're not in here right now, it takes a leader that is vulnerable, who's willing to open up and allow teachers to empower themselves and to step back and let them lead. And they're excellent leaders doing this work. And it's a culture change. I mean, it is something that you have to say, okay, I may lead, but I may lead from behind. I'm here to serve and support. And those leaders are doing that. And if they're not, they're learning to do that. So the work is happening. We are in cohort 4 and accepting letters of intents. We've received 97 so far. So we are hoping, and we know that it's going to be great. What is really neat about the experience, so when we started this cohort 1 3 years ago, and I was within the cohort 1 when we started this, I was really clueless. I mean, I knew from reading the book, but when you get into the work, it's different. When you get and start practicing and become that practitioner. But by cohort 4, the applications have changed. I mean, they know the work because of what Arkansas has done to lay that foundation. The work is there. So they've already started their guiding coalitions. They've already started their collaborative teacher teams. They've already started laying the culture, so they're ready to exceed and ready to excel in everything that they do. So it's amazing to see what's happened. And it's growing not only within the cohorts, and Tim covered this with higher ed. We're meeting with higher ed April the 27th. So they're working on how to embed those practices in their teacher prep programs. And that was one of the things that he mentioned Buffalo Island. I asked Buffalo Island at one point, I said, is there anything the State Department can do to support or serve you in this work? You know, we're here to help. And she said, if there's any way that you could talk to higher ed and get the teachers who are applying for the job prepared to go into, not start a collaborative teacher team, but know how to work the progress of a teacher team and just come in and step into the process of it. And so they're doing that, and they are working on this. So that's exciting. So April the 27th, they will walk out of there with some embedded practices that they will implement by fall of 2020. Yesterday, Tim met with the Department of Career and Tech, so just figuring out where they are in the process with that. In July, June, one of those months, we have with the AAA, the Coaches Clinic, we have Solution Tree coming in and talking to the coaches because they're wondering, how does athletics fit into this? How does PE fit into this? How can we support education? And how do we support our students? And really, you know, they're really good about building relationships, and that's where it starts. So just understanding how to take that part of building the relationships and move it forward. Trying to think what other processes we have. Head Start, we're talking to Head Start in April 6th. We'll talk to Head Start with that and get them started on the collaborative. They want to know about the collaboration and setting up teacher teams. They're not ready for the process, but just changing their culture to do the collaboration. Any ones that I'm missing out right now?
I didn't know about that one, so you
Surprise.
covered more than. I would just say that so you all know the high level of importance the governor places on this. I can't tell you how many times when I meet with the governor and the governor and a superintendent, or just the governor to give an update on what's going on, that he asks me, how's the work going with the professional learning communities? I don't know that there's another governor in the nation that would know that much detail about what's going on that would be able to ask that question. But not only does he ask that question, he understands what's going into the work. So I think our school folks need to understand that even the governor, he's supportive, but at a deep level, not just supportive at a surface level, because he understands the impact. Glad to have Missy on board. She's doing a great job, just really taking things to the next level. And I surprised her. She didn't know she was going to have to be up here talking to y'all today, but I wanted to give her the chance to give you a brief update on the broader work. And thank you, Missy.
I do want to share one other thing. You thought you were going to get rid of me just then, but I do want to share one other thing. On the sustainability, just the challenge of coming into this, continuing the work, then you have the sustainability and sharing it out. And Lori and Mandy specifically, and we have others, we've set up on the website, on the Professional Learning Community's website, where anybody can go in, they can fill out a Google form and say, I want to tour one of these schools, and they choose the school in their area. So we've had other schools who have reached out, and they choose their school, and they tell me exactly what they want to see. If they want to see a common formative assessment, if they want to see essential standards, if they want to see a guiding coalition or leadership. So we know that we're intentional in planning the day. So in Lori's situation, we had a district who reached out and wanted to go see a teacher team in practice, and she brought a teacher team in, and another school district watched them in action, and it was phenomenal. And when they walked out of there, they're like, and so then they took their high school. So it is going to grow, and they're going to help grow it. And they know that. That's one of the challenges and commitments when they sign up for this project, is to know that I'm responsible for sharing this and sustaining it for the state of Arkansas.
I wonder, I know in the Head Start and pre-K, they contract for services outside for their therapies. OT, PT, speech, all of that. I wonder if there was a way that we could encourage them to have those professionals understand and learn how to be part of a collaborative, because so many times you have a child and they go out, but you don't necessarily know what goes on with them or how you might reinforce it in the classroom. So I don't know how that would work, or
Well,
if
and
it would work everywhere.
Yeah, and absolutely, that is something that is working in the districts, because as they get to their intervention teams and they're understanding whether it's a will problem or a skill problem, they understand that this child has speech problems, so they'll call in the speech therapist, and usually the nurse sits on that committee as well.
Right.
So the nurse understands what's going on in the home life. So everybody comes to that committee, but I do think it is important to grow. So that's something to say to Head Start.
Thank you, and appreciate the work you're doing.
Last
Anybody
thing I want
else?
to say about it, and hey, if there are any questions, we'll be glad to take them. The districts where we see the greatest success are the districts where you have strong superintendent support.
Absolutely.
You saw Mr. Spainhour. I don't think we introduced him, but Mr. Spainhour, superintendent of Greenbrier, was here today. I know Dr. Brubaker at Fort Smith. He and I have had a number of conversations. They are very supportive of this effort. So I just can't stress enough. It's going to work. It's going to work even better if you have that support at the central office level. We have even gone to the point now where, you know, our interview process, when we get these letters of intent and the applications, we want to know and see these superintendents involved, because what we know is if they are not, the likelihood of success for that school in that cohort is diminished. Not impossible, but diminished. And so that's an important part of seeing what level of district support will be given to these schools. So just wanted to make sure y'all were aware that we're looking at that too.
Absolutely. Ms. Chambers?
As we are in the spirit of contagion this morning, passion is contagious. And whenever I see somebody that excited about something that they're doing or working on, listening to you, it's very encouraging, and you want to know more. And you may have said this, but how did this start? Was this PLC looking for a better way to do PLC? Was this a gap in the districts and trying to meet that need? Because I work with higher ed as well, and I think they really do need and would benefit from this, but it matters how it starts and who asked for it.
On higher ed, or all of it, the whole project?
How did we start in Arkansas?
Started in 2017, and Secretary Key could probably give more information about attending the summit, legislators attending the summit. And I know you want to speak on that, because I wasn't here in 2017, but I was able to join in on the projects in the 2017. So,
Well, I think it even goes back earlier than that, but I guess I can't remember the year. I guess it.
I think it was a 17 session, though.
It was 2017 session, but it was in 2016, and that's where conversations and between legislators at the time, and you know, of this process and understanding this process, and actually attending one of these. I think it was in Atlanta. Is that where it was?
I think so.
Tim? I think Tim was it. Oh no, Bill's. Oh, the first one was Phoenix. That's right. The first one was Phoenix. The second one was Atlanta. That's where we had the dinner with Anthony Muhammad and the group. So as you see, it was a process. It was a educational process for legislators to understand. Mr. Gossage doesn't like for me to give him kudos, or at least he tells me he doesn't. But really, the driving force, this started when he was in the legislature, and because as a practitioner, he understood the level of success that this could bring and the culture change that it could create. But there were a number of other legislators that took it and ran with it, and then we got involved at the department level, and when we looked at it, we were familiar. When we saw the impact that it had, it just like, hey, how can we create this opportunity for the state to take action? Looking at funding streams, looking at how we had been spending some funds in the past and how we needed to redirect and reprioritize identifying those opportunities so that we could have a bigger bang for the buck, the taxpayer dollars, and the efforts that were going on in schools. So this has been a multi-year journey, and as I mentioned before, you know, as we now see the impact that it has, what are other areas of our operations and school operations that we can go and make adjustments to as well because of what we're learning from this. It's exciting to see how when as you saw the excitement and heard it today, as it's really transformational. I mean, that's a word that gets overused, but in this case, it's the truth. It's transformed the way we do business here at the department. It has transformed how we look at things like 1003 grants, school improvement grants, and the things that need to be in place where at one time there was no coordination. Schools just really didn't get much guidance on how to use those dollars, and it was you know, all over the place. And the effects, as you can imagine, indicated no coordination. We are coordinating those things now, and we are encouraging districts to look at things like, that's why we talk so much about high reliability schools and professional learning communities, because we know the impact that it has on students. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but I know that that's a very short summary of the genesis and progression of this.
Well, it helps. I may pursue you to understand even more technically, specifically what you did. We're all looking for meaning and purpose.
Right.
And teachers know their purpose. They weren't lacking that. It sounds like, though, you gave them this approach has given them a sharpened vehicle or a more intentional alignment. We all think our children are most handsome. One of the things that I thought was so interesting is, in addition to culture and collaboration, that it also kind of expanded this sense of we and they're all our kids, all of them. And that changes the way you see what you do. And I just think it has application in a lot of areas. And so very encouraged, very excited about what you're doing.
It is exciting. I want to add too, there was one, whoever came up, this was before me, but the concept of focusing on 10 districts or 12 districts instead of splitting that money among every student in the state of Arkansas, it was phenomenal. And that's where the other states that you listen to is other states. Mississippi State called me a couple of weeks ago wanting to know how to get this in their state. And then you've talked to other states, but what they've always split their money among all of the students, where we've taken it and really put it in and intentional with 10 to 12 districts, but it has grown since then. So 2017, we started with 12 districts, and now it's pretty much in 83% of our schools. So that is a huge growth that I don't think we would have seen had we not been intentional and focused on certain districts. And now everybody's going, I want some of that. I want some of that. And in another example, we have one district who joined the cohort last year, and they have a campus that was chosen. Well, the superintendent, and this goes back to what you were saying about the superintendent, he has said, I want my whole district to do this. So when the first book that comes to them is Learning by Doing, he said, I'm going to buy it for the rest of the district. So we're going to join in on when they do their first overview. The whole district's going to join in. Even though we're supporting just one campus, the superintendent wants the whole district. So he's purchasing those resources out of his funds and joining the district. So there's an example of a superintendent that is really bought in and is leading the work. So it's phenomenal.
And I use this example a lot for RISE. If we had begun the RISE initiative 10 years ago, what kind of results would we be seeing in students and in teachers and in schools now? And I use the same example here. Had we done this 10 years ago as a state, think about the conversation we would be having of where we stood in comparison to surrounding states, SREB states, and the nation. And that's what I look at is, okay, so we didn't do it 10 years ago, but now let's think 10 years ahead. What are the conversations we'll be having about the impact of RISE, the impact of professional learning communities, the impact on the profession, because that's one of the things we get feedback from teachers, that the best stories are the ones that come from teachers who were resistant at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They just weren't going to be, this isn't going to work, this is another fad, we've done professional learning communities, we know what this is. And now you talk to them, and their conversations are, I wouldn't do this any other way. I don't want to leave my school. As a matter of fact, we have a video of Quitman, a teacher in Quitman, who was this close to saying, I'm done, I'm out, I'm leaving. She was convinced to come back one more year, and in that video, she tells her team in her opening district, whatever they called it at the time, before the school started, they had all the team there, and she described her thought process, and it was very raw emotions, and she was describing how this work has really changed her mindset and her approach. And now she's not ready to retire. She's not ready to walk out. She's ready to keep on going. So we hear stories like that all the time from around the state, and we're excited that this is going to have an impact that goes far beyond what we can even imagine right now.
I think too that the leadership at that point in time, we believe that you don't always need more money. You just need to spend the money you have smarter and more kid-focused. And I give great credit to those in the legislature and the leadership of the governor, the leadership of the secretary, in helping people realize, because it was not a cheap program. And there had to be a lot of discussion. But I think, helping the taxpayer understand that we're going to spend as wise as we can the money we have. So if we ever have to come to you for more money, it's because of a really solid foundation kind of thing like that. So I do appreciate all that were involved in that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Owen. Only you would be able to follow that excellent presentation.
Well, I will definitely try. I was kind of saddened to see that the Greenbrier School District stepped away because I was actually going to mention them in my report.
Well,
So,
they might have you on satellite radio.
there you go. I hope that they find something better to listen to than me. So, good morning. Anthony Owen, State Department of Education, Director of Computer Science. What I have provided you all is as mentioned in the document that should have been as part of y'all's board packet, I was going to provide a couple physical copies for things for you all. If anyone in the crowd would like a copy, I do have additionals back there. The first is our 5-year report. I'll just mention these briefly, and then if you have any questions, please reach out to my office. We actually, when we started this process with the 5-year report, it started out, and I started collecting information. I went to Rob from Eric, Rob, and Isaac, and I said, Rob, I want something that when people pick it up, that it is different. It's not a standard governmental report. I know we have to have those occasionally, but I want something fun, something that people can enjoy reading, and something that sparks a conversation when we go out nationally. So Rob listened to me, and he came back a couple weeks later and he said, Anthony, we have kind of a jazzed up version of a standard report, but then I have this really crazy idea that my team threw out to me. And I said, well, I love the really crazy. So Rob showed me this mock-up of a laptop. Now this has went through some iterations since then. So a lot of people, I'm gonna give a little bit of history just real briefly. A lot of people want to open it like this, and they're like, it's upside down. Well, the thing about it is this is a laptop. And if you think about how a laptop opens, the stickers and everything are up. So I had to actually give Rob a little history lesson on Apple. I don't know if any of y'all remember in the early 90s, Apple logo was actually upside down on the laptops. And that was because when you closed it, the Apple would be the right direction for the user. And that was from Steve Jobs when he first came back. He said it's all about the user's experience. But it tanked in market research, so they ended up switching it back. So Rob got a little information on that. Anyway, hope you enjoy the report. A lot of information there and a fun way to read it. The other thing that my team has started doing over the past, I think we're on issue number 8 now, and I've provided you all a copy of this. We have started putting out monthly newsletters. And this is a recap of the work that our team is doing statewide month for the previous month. So every month we're putting these out. I've given my team a deadline that we want the previous month's issue out, or the issue covering the previous month, by the 10th of each month. And they've done a fantastic job. In fact, I want to give a special call out on this. Leslie Savell, who is my computer science specialist currently housed at the Southwestern Arkansas Co-op, does the lion's share of the work on these. She does most of the formatting while our whole team contributes content. She's the one that has to do the final editing, the compiling, everything of that nature. So I really appreciate her. Those are all available on our website. Back issues, if you want to go back and read those, you are more than welcome to, and we would encourage the public to, because it really, we also have upcoming events listed. That said, I'm not going to go through the full document of the report that I provided y'all. I do want to just hit the highlights, and then I'll take any questions that y'all have. I provided y'all the full enrollment report for this current school year, along with some highlights at the top of that. We continue to see positive increases in enrollment. We hope to see that again next year. I will tell you, every year about October, I start sweating about the middle of October until the end, till I get those enrollment numbers. But you know, we're continuing to see increase in those, and I'm very happy to see those. One of the things I'd like to point out about that is that we continue to see more students taking more than just one option, more than just one course. And I think that's very important for our initiative, that not only are we looking at the students that are taking more than one course, but we are looking in a given school year, but how many students are taking more than one course over their high school career? How many are completing pathways? Which actually is one of the governor's new 5-year goals for this initiative, is that within 5 years, we want 50% of our Arkansas high schools offering a full pathway of 3 courses that lead to industry certification, and 50% of our schools offering a full pathway of 3 computer science courses that lead to a college credit or an industry internship or something of that nature. So we're going to continue building the program around those 2 goals. With that said, we can't do it without teachers, which gets us to the next section. We're continuing to see great growth in our number of certified teachers. We're up to, fully certified, 251. Those teaching under a temporary approval code is 172. That is a unique list from the full certification list, so that's 172 different teachers. I've provided exam numbers there. Also, our stipend now bonus programs continue to be very useful. If you did not hear, in December, the governor announced that our high school bonus program, which had been $2,000 for the first year, now is $2,000 per year for 5 years. So high school CS teachers can now receive $10,000 over 5 years for teaching, which we think will be crucial to the longevity of the program. I've already mentioned the 5-year report and provide the physical copies. Governor's All-Region, All-State Coding Competition. Again, we saw growth in that competition. I was worried early on. In fact, I reached out to Dr. Pfeffer pretty early in the registration process and said, we're just not having the numbers that we want to see. And she said, well, why not, basically, and told me what am I going to do differently to make that happen. But I will say that she also stepped up. She and Secretary Key helped me speak directly to some leaders around the state. And we ended up with 135 teams, which is an increase of over 122 the prior year. And continually, every year, we've increased the number of teams, right at 400 students. 14 of our 15 educational service cooperatives participated in this. And I can't say how thankful I am to those co-ops, especially all of them, but especially those that don't have a hosted CS specialist at their co-op, because they're taking personnel and putting personnel behind this initiative that are not there designated for the CS, by the CS unit. So, but every co-op does that in some extent. So I know all my specialists had help even in their home co-ops. So I can't say thank you enough to those co-ops that step up and continue to support our initiative, and they all do. I've provided numbers over the years. The All-State event is currently scheduled for Saturday, May 2nd. Obviously, the secretary and our office is communicating with the secretary in light of the current situation. We will continue with the planning, moving forward with the plan being May 2nd at UALR. We hope that you all and the public can attend that event. Today, we're actually a little bit later going to release the names of the teams, and that's where I was going to give some accolades to Greenbrier. They actually have a team that will be advancing to the all-state competition. But the full 17-team list and student names should be released shortly after noon today. Moving quickly through, we do have a new hire that's coming on board March 23rd in our office. Y'all probably know her. I know Dr. Moore does. It is Morgan, used to be Aldridge, but now Warbington. Morgan used to serve as the educational liaison for the governor's office. She was our office's primary contact for the computer science initiative to the governor. We went through an interview process. We kind of tried a new process at Secretary Key's benefit, and we had individuals that were not part of the CS initiative conduct the primary interview in a new process that the agency is exploring. And Morgan, while all the candidates did a phenomenal job when we finished, before I said anything, they said, this is your person. This is who you need. She's not a computer science expert, but she has great understanding of the history of the initiative. She has understanding of how to push educational initiatives and how to market what we're trying to do, which is exactly what I needed in my office. I have CS specialists out in the field that are content area specialists. I've provided some other program updates. I'm not going to go through each of those because I'm aware of your time. I just want to briefly mention, and he stepped out, but that's probably good because kind of like Secretary Key, he tells me he never likes getting called out in public, even for positive. But the governor did reconstitute, or through executive order, reestablish the task force for computer science. It's now the Computer Science and Cybersecurity Task Force. Had their first meeting in January, and we are having our next meeting next month, or next week, Tuesday next week. It's at the currently scheduled to be at the Criminal Justice Institute building that day, and you're welcome if we're there to come attend. Mr. Gossage is actually serving as chairman of that committee. And I want to say that is a large task force. It's about 32 members. And Mr. Gossage and the governor's office is doing a wonderful job of managing that process, of managing that many people. And I think that the work that will come out of that task force will well inform the computer science office and the agency for years to come and what our focuses should be, just like the original task force did. So that said, I am open to answering any questions if anybody has any.
It's an excellent report. Do we have questions on either side?
I will say that it is an honor to serve on the Computer Science Task Force, and I'm excited to see some of the recommendations come out. I think a stronger connection with business and industry, a stronger connection with higher ed, and hopefully in years to come, an increase in more diverse students and females entering in computer science. So I'm excited to see when those recommendations come out later this year.
Anybody over here? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
And thanks for the explanation on the sheet.
Oh, yes, ma'am, my pleasure.
Let me just briefly, because Anthony went over it really fast on the May 2nd date, just to make sure y'all know, we're not making any calls on that, but we're continuing to monitor the situation to determine if any changes to that schedule need to be made. So I just wanted y'all to know I asked Anthony to mention that, but I want to reiterate that we're watching, we're monitoring, as we are with all events, with respect to any of the initiatives that we have going.
Now we have member reports. Do I have any on either side? Ms. Newton?
Only thing I've got today is our next ESSA meeting is scheduled for April 1st at 9:30, and again, I'm sure that would probably be monitored, and if it changed, I will get get Gina to send out something to all of y'all and let y'all know when it would be rescheduled to, if it ended up being rescheduled.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, sure.
I was just gonna share, I guess since the last time we were here, we had Love Teaching Week, which I thought was a great success. We did a teacher lounge takeover at Baseline Elementary where we gave away close to a little over $600 that was gifted from several businesses throughout the community, and it was mainly sponsored from the Travs. I wanted to publicly acknowledge the Travs, ASTA, and AEA because they were instrumental in making it happen. We also did online challenges where local businesses donated gifts like a gift certificate for a massage to teachers, which I wanted. We also we participated in the Impact and Tomorrow Summit. And next month, we will have individuals from Student Voice that will come, the Student Voice Institute that I know I've mentioned a couple times. So we finally have them on the agenda to come and just present and talk to you all about that.
Okay, great, thank you. And we'll stay tuned on that as well.
Right.
Right, okay. And special ed, the dispute resolution and behavior support specialists have been providing training on the disability rights. I had told you that they were working on assessment for the 1%, the most cognitively impaired, and that has been approved by the U.S. Department of Education. And each of their units, curriculum and assessment unit, and the team members are conducting DLM observations, and a work group met in February to discuss whether alternative assessment guidelines should be updated in order to meet the specifics of that was approved. So that's that. And I want to thank Michelle Waldo, who always makes sure I get a concise report of the work that they're doing there. Okay, Commissioner's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The number of things, and as you can imagine, it's all related to the COVID-19 situation. First thing, just wanted to clarify again, mainly for the viewing audience, under Governor Hutchinson's emergency proclamation, there should be no school closures related to COVID-19 without authorization from the Secretary of Health in consultation with me and the department. There seemed to be some misunderstanding about that, or the word just hadn't gotten out to everybody yesterday, but I want to make sure that outside of the 4 counties that were specified yesterday, there are no school closures that have been authorized due to COVID-19. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, I'll be having a webinar for superintendents with updated guidance from the Health Department and CDC. The team is Dr. Pfeffer, and the team's working on that now, getting that information together. I asked Dan to pull up the web page. You see this is our home page for Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. We posted a slider there with a link to the a new page that we put there on the COVID-19 situation. I'll go ahead and click that, Dan. This is the same information we are emailing to schools, but we're putting it here so the public can have access to all of that information as well. As you see, we're giving them the guidance from the Commissioner's memo. As schools evaluate their options, should more closures become necessary, digital learning options for schools, I would stress there that schools need to consider from an equity standpoint the ability of their students to access broadband or connections before they make decisions to say we're going to use this as an option, because some districts have the capacity, communities have the capacity, some do not. And they need to pay very close attention to that. Mental health issues, one of the questions that we've been getting regarding the meals, school meal programs. We have asked for the waiver from USDA regarding the any provisions of school meals so that schools that are closed can continue to provide grab-and-go options or some other type of off-site options that would not jeopardize reimbursements for the school districts. So as of the beginning of this meeting, I had not received confirmation of the approval of that waiver, but it has been submitted, and we were waiting to hear from USDA on that. Anyway, that's, and we will add more information to this website or this web page as it becomes available. And we are just continuing to monitor all activities. You know, the one thing we want to send a message is that our schools need to be a place of calm, need to be a place of reassurance for their students. And we know that if there's any profession that is really good at helping students be calm, feel better about the situations, provide kind of that refuge when the world goes crazy, and that's our teachers. And so I really want to express our appreciation to the teachers that in those classrooms doing what they do every day, the support staff that helps. You know, we've talked about many times in here the relationships, Dr. Hill. Sometimes the student's best relationship is with a support staff member. So they are important as well. We're going to do everything we can to mitigate and minimize interruptions, but when those situations do become necessary, we work very closely with the teams in those school districts to be able to provide the types of services that can still go on outside of the typical classroom delivery. And would just encourage everyone that as they hear of concerns or as maybe they interact with school districts that are concerned about possible exposures, refer them to the health department hotline. We now have a hotline that has been established specifically for schools. We have redeployed some of our team to be at the health department in their operations center to help take those calls. These are team members who have extensive experience in school operations. Some of our former folks here that are former superintendents, principals, you name it, we've got them there that can help understand what questions school folks need to ask and what they're going to ask, and be able to be really be a liaison between the type of information the health department needs and the type of information the school districts need. And just back to where I started with that clarification, if a district closes as a preemptive, you know, what we are hearing from the health department and CDC is preemptive closures are not necessarily the best option. It really impedes the work. If a premature closure impedes our ability to get the right information to the health department so that they can make medical and scientific based decisions. So really can't stress enough the importance of making the call to the hotline before you make a decision. We know superintendents are under a lot of pressure to make decisions based on the community input, but it's critical in this time that those decisions are made based on medical and scientific data, and that's part of what we'll be communicating with superintendents in our 1 o'clock webinar.
Do you mind if I ask a question on that? I really appreciate the leadership of you and your team and the health department in working with this. As far as the schools that have been closed so far, I've received questions about AMI days. Is that a district option as to whether they're going to use their AMI days? What does that look like? Districts
do have the option if they had approved an approved AMI plan. They can use that if they choose to. We extended, districts had submitted and been approved for 5 AMI days. At the outset of this outbreak, we extended those automatically to 10 days and extended that approval. We also reopened the window for districts to submit. If they had not previously submitted, we extended that window to May 1st. But there are some districts that just, their leadership does not believe the AMI is in the best interest of their students, and so they have opted not to pursue that. So we work with every district, and a lot of it depends on the district capabilities to have a robust AMI program. I know Little Rock School District, they are using that. Dollarway, I believe, is not. Not sure about the others, but those are two that I know I've had conversations about.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
And I do know that according to what the paper reported this morning, that the governor has said we still expect 178 days for students at this point. Yes, so which means the opportunity for makeup days, AMI does count to that 178 if they're approved. So yeah, the least disruption to learning as possible is what we all are shooting for. We know that there is disruption of learning. We're not insensitive to that, but at the same time, our students are depending on us to make wise decisions and do what's in their best interest, not just in this immediate term, but in the long term. And so a lot of the decision making will be centered around short and long-term impacts. I know the Little Rock School District has a text, an email, and a phone call process. And this morning they were talking about you can pick up lunch between grab and go between 10:30 and 12:30. Metro will provide free busing for all the kids from 11 through high school, and elementary kids can come in with a parent, and they even told them what was going to be in the lunch. So,
yeah. and
which may help them decide yes or no, I do want it.
And regardless of what school they attend, they can go to any school and get that. I think that was important and a very good response to the situation.
Right, because for those who may be going to a magnet, they might want to go to the school closest to their house. Okay. Any new business from anyone? Any public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Ms. Dean, second by Ms. Chambers. All in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Stay calm and stay well.